Welcome back to QR77's Calgary Today, featuring your host, Angela Kokott.
By conducting the survey, had an internet survey of over 2,000 Canadians, and of those, 52% said they'd been diagnosed with one or more chronic diseases and the impact that would be having on their life, their work life. My guest this half hour is Jason Reed. He is with Sick with Success, also lives with Crohn's and arthritis. Jason, I want to talk about the importance of a job for someone living with a chronic illness, not just for the paycheck, because obviously there's a lot of financial needs there when you're dealing with treatment and everything else, but the importance of having that job for their emotional health and how that helps them.
Absolutely. Personally, I've always been a very goal-oriented, very motivated person, so the idea of going a long period without working, I know would actually have a really serious effect, and I really do think that that's the same with other people, too. I mean, on one hand, we're living in a society where often what we do is actually very important to our identity. The other things to keep in mind is the social interaction that happens at work. Because particularly people with, for instance, chronic pain and chronic fatigue, what happens is there are actually structural changes that happen with the brain, and the frontal lobes will actually begin to shrink. It actually mimics aging. But socializing with people, because it's inherently unpredictable and makes our brains work a certain way, it actually keeps that deterioration from happening. So that's very important, too. And I think the other thing we have to look at is not just the fact that making sure people are working, but also the type of jobs that they're in. People have different personalities, and somebody with a strong work ethic who's a leader, who's, wants to be, for instance, like an entrepreneur or do a challenging job, what I'm finding sometimes happens when I talk to these people is they're getting advice from their doctor saying, well, you may not want to do this type of job. Find, a bureaucratic organization where you can just kind of fit in that has a good benefit plan. And the problem is when people do that, they're not really playing to their strengths, and they're not growing, and they're often very unhappy.
I also wonder if someone who lives in chronic pain or with an illness that they always have to watch out, like you said, it's unpredictable, if they can go to work and it's an opportunity to focus on something else other than their disease.
Absolutely. There is very little that I can think of that's worse than being lousy and being home. I mean, obviously, I've felt lousy and been at work quite a bit, but there is that distraction factor. It is a real balance, and that's something I've learned in 30 years. I've actually gone, both ways. I've actually gone to the point where I've ignored really significant pain. I had actually, when I was 18, I had my intestine perforated, basically split open, which is very painful and is very serious. But I was in my last year of university. I didn't want to miss class, and for 4 months, I actually did not miss a day of class until I woke up one day and literally couldn't get up, and I was rushed to the hospital, and I nearly died of toxic shock. So that's the one extreme we want to avoid is, continuing to go to work when things are getting obviously worse and worse. But then there's the other extreme, which I call capitulation, and this has happened to me too, where your health gets bad, you give up, you become bitter. I had a great life when I was 30. I had a wife, I had a job, I had a condo. My health took a turn for the worse. I got bitter, I stopped growing, I lost everything. And I had to re-engage my life and build everything back up again. So it really is a balance.
All right, let's hear from you, 974-TALK, 974-8255. Hi, Trevor. I think I may have lost Trevor. Trevor, are you there? No, I think you just lost Trevor. He was talking about living with a herniated disc. And, Jason, I'm sure you hear all types of stories of people who live with something that maybe the employer can't see, and then they don't take it seriously.
That is a huge problem. It's a problem with employers, but it's also a problem often for friends and family members, too. It really is so ingrained in our psyche that we should be able to tell when a person is sick by looking at them. And often what people will find is their friends, their family, and sometimes even their doctors will not believe them when they're seriously ill. And that actually has quite a serious effect on your psyche and your ability to trust people, your relationships with authority. So it's pretty important.
Jason, I just want to take a break. Find out how the drive home is going. Jim King, QR77, helicopter traffic. How are things, Jim? And Jason, I've just run out of time, but I think you've heard lots of stories like that, the importance of keeping that relationship strong during a very stressful time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Angela.
You bet. Jason Reed is with Sick with Success. He's also lived with Crohn's and arthritis for more than 30 years.